if you look on the left side of the screen, just kind of a quick breakout of what IP ratings include. So the 6 on your IP67 or IP69K just references dust, dust ingress. When you talk about IP67 or IP69, so IP67, they're going to take a motor, a robot, whatever they're doing, they're going to submerge it in water for 30 minutes, up to a meter, so about 4 feet. So it has to be able to not have water ingress for 30 minutes, and that's really all the test is for IP67. So obviously in plants, they're going to be spraying things down. I mean, if something can sit in water for 30 minutes and not get any water inside of it, you would think that when a plant hoses something down like a car wash, because everybody knows that they do. I'm sure most people on this call have probably seen a sanitation process done. It depending on the experience of the person doing the sanitation process, they could do it correctly. They could peel paint off of the side of the wall. It really just depends. When you look at IP69K, so IP69K, they're not going to submerge it in water at all. They're going to shoot water jets at different angles, different degrees. The water pressure is going to be 80 to 100 bar, which if you're not familiar with what that is, that's about 1200 PSI to 1400 PSI. Just for reference, 1000 PSI will shoot a hole through your skin. So most plants aren't using 1000 PSI or 1000 PSI or 1200 PSI out on their floor. So to say that everything has to be IP69K, it's not really realistic. And every plant has a little bit different, process. Their pressures are different. IP69K also references water temperature. It's 176 degrees. I don't think anybody is out there with 176 degree water on the plant floor spraying their equipment. So it really takes things to the extreme when you look at if you need an IP69K rating. By all means, is it probably the best rating for what they're doing every day out on the floor when they do a sanitary washdown? Probably. In my mind, it probably is the best. But is it required on everything to be IP69K? No. So really, I feel like people at the plants really need to understand what it is, and I don't feel like they understand it. I think they've just been told, oh, everything needs to be IP69K, so that's what they say they need. They put in their RFQs, everything needs to be IP69K. So it's, in my mind, what I see most of the time is it's a conversation with the customer for them to understand that. Are there opportunities where IP69K is necessary on the plant floor? Yes. There are some places, if you're direct product contact, you've got meat, you've got high allergens. There are definitely places where it gets hosed down every day with high pressure water and heat. So I guess it really depends on the situation. I think that's something the customer has to decide. And I know there are some equipment manufacturers on the call. So, I mean, if you're looking at talking to customers about that, have this conversation. I'm welcome to share I'll be happy to share this slide with them. It is really something that they need to look at and decide what works best for them. We use Stabile robots. I know Grody also uses Stabile robots. They're IP67. I have seen them get hosed down, like I said, like a car wash, water, I mean, inches from them, from the baffles on them on their scare robots. And they have never had any water inside of them. They've never had any issues with them. I mean, they've been running them for years and years and years. So, I mean, really, it really just depends on what they're comfortable with and what they require. It's probably going to be an uphill battle if you're trying to sell them IP67, but it is absolutely, in my mind, from my personal experience, perfectly acceptable in any food environment. The other half of IP ratings is that people think that, if you put chemicals in there, whatever your pH is, whatever caustic chemicals you're running, that IP69K covers that. It does not. IP69K only discusses water, and it's clear water if you go in and read it. If it's dirty water or things like that, that's not covered in any of the tests that they do. So something to also be aware of when you're looking at IP ratings is what it doesn't include, which I have on the right side there. So there's no chemical resistance. That doesn't mean whatever piece of equipment or motor is hygienically designed, and it doesn't mean that the material has compliance with food processes. So those are also things you need to look at when something says it's IP69K. Maybe they're using nylon, maybe they're using aluminum. Aluminum can be IP69K. That doesn't mean it's going to withstand the caustic chemicals in the wash down process that they do. And every plant is a little different for what chemicals they use. So my suggestion is when you're working with a customer, if you're building a piece of equipment for them or speccing out a piece of equipment, talk to them about their sanitation cycle. What chemicals are they using? What pH levels? And then go back and, kind of do your own research. And then, us inside as a company, we try to present that to our customers so they're aware of those challenges when it happens. I know from my experience building equipment, usually sanitation and quality are about the last people to know that they're even buying a piece of equipment. So, try to get them in at the beginning of the talk and have these conversations with them then.